I'm literally having to do it in like 4 sections because I have so many books. Hello everybody and welcome back to a new video. Today is going to be a what's on my fall TBR. This is kind of going to be like a recent book haul, but books that are on my radar for autumn that I want to read. I am so beyond ready for autumn, for cozy season. I just love it, especially being a reader. I think when this video goes up, actually it will technically be the day after the first official day of autumn. I've got my sweater on, I've got an autumnal Starbucks iced chai with brown sugar syrup, with almond milk, with pumpkin cream, cold foam. The best. I have a lot of books to get through. I did do a big old haul. I do have a lot of newbies that I've added to the autumn TBR, but I do also have a few books from last year that I did not read that I want to read this season. So let's just get into it because we have a lot of books to get through. So let's start with physicals. I'm going to start with this one because this is my current read. This is A Little Life, one of potentially the most hyped up BookTok books, I would say. I've had this for maybe 2 years, I think. Tried to read it but just never really been in the right headspace, I think, to be reading this book. So I finally started it because the production of it comes out in the cinemas on the 28th of September, so I want to finish this by then. Okay, then I have the Crescent City series by Sarah J Maas. I read ACOTAR earlier this year and it has become one of my favourite worlds, my favourite series ever. Really excited to get to this. I know she has just announced the 3rd one in this series, so I did want to get to these before that came out, but a few people have said to read the Throne of Glass series before you read this. And the Throne of Glass series is also on my TBR, but I don't have that. I'm going to ask for that for Christmas because I think there's maybe like 8 books in that. So it is quite a lot. I literally have no idea what these are about at all. I'm going to be in my fantasy era this autumn. Another massively hyped one, I have Fourth Wing. Again, I'm so excited to get to this. I've seen this literally all over BookTok, Bookstagram, BookTube, everywhere. I'm kind of late to the party on this one, but I've just had so many other books that I wanted to get to. And I did want to save this for more cozy weather. Love a fantasy book in the autumn. Again, I don't really know much about this one, apart from it's to do with dragons, dragon school, things like that, I think. I'm just so excited to get to it. Then one of the very few romance books I have on my autumn TBR is the first in the Boys of Tommen series. This is Binding 13. I am so excited but so scared to read this series. Look at the size of them. For a romance book, that is huge. I think they're like near to 800 pages, which is just ridiculous. I complain if a romance book is over like 350. So I have no idea how I'm going to get on with this, but I feel like people defend this book with their lives. And Destiny here on BookTube is obsessed with the series and I do trust her opinion, so I thought I would finally get around to it. Normally I buy every book in a series because I'm just like convinced that I'm going to love them. But for this one, I have actually been sensible and only ordered the first just because of how big they are. And I feel like if I'm not committed after this book, there's no point reading the rest. It's actually set in the UK and it's like a college sports romance, I think. Another little romance I have on the TBR is Things They Left Behind by Lucy Score. This is the 3rd book in the Knock 'Em Out series. I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with Lucy Score. I really enjoy her writing and I really enjoy her books, but personally I feel like there is a lot of filler chapters in them and they are unnecessarily long for what I tend to get out of them. But having said that, I've been so excited for this book. I feel like this is one that everyone has been waiting for. The Lucian and Sloane book, I feel like everybody has been waiting for their story. I have heard conflicting opinions about this one though, so. Then I have Divine Rivals. This has been all over my social media recently. I think this is a fantasy romance. Again, I have literally no idea what this is about. I'm guessing it's going to be like enemies to lovers, romantasy type vibes. Sarah Caroli has hyped this up so much. I'm sure she gave it 5 stars and I've seen so many people say that they loved it as well. I think the new one of this does come out towards the end of this year, so hopefully if I read this one I can pick up the next one. Then another fantasy that Bestie Sarah has hyped up is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Again, not really sure what this one is about. I think it's about a sort of like magical fantasy world where there is like the magical people, non-magical people. Maybe they do like a sort of ritual type thing. I really don't know. but I'm just really excited to read this one again. I've heard such good things, a lot of 5-star reviews. Then I have, is it Babel? I think it's called Babel. And this is so intimidating. I bought this last year actually when I was in Paris. I went to Shakespeare & Company, got it stamped, and I picked this up and I just never got around to it. Honestly, I don't really know what this one is about. I think it is like literary fiction. It kind of gives dark academia vibes. I think it is set on a sort of school campus. But I did actually read Yellowface by the same author. I didn't realise it was the same author at the time, and I did really enjoy that. And I think this might follow similar sort of themes but just be a little bit more dark academia. Then another one that I had on my TBR last year that I just followed over to this year is Us Against You by Frederick Backman. So this is number 2, I believe, in the sort of Beartown series, or the kind of like follow on from each other. Beartown was actually one of my 5-star reads from last year. It really took me off guard. I did not expect to love it as much as I did. So I bought this one not long after finishing that, but I've just never got around to it. So I would like to read this year because I think his writing style is just beautiful. Then I've got Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is the author of the Six of Crows duology, which again was one of my 5-star reads from last year. Literally loved it, and I have heard good things about this as well. I don't think it's as good as Six of Crows from the reviews I've seen, but I'm still excited to read it. I think this is a dark academia fantasy type vibe. I think it's set at Yale, so it's dark academia but they have magic. It's kind of giving The Secret History but if it was fantasy. I just love a dark academia fantasy thriller type read in the autumn. I just think they are so cozy. Then I've got Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I know nothing about this book. Actually, that's a lie. I think it's to do with video games and it's set in like the 70s. Have I made up the video games part? I honestly have no idea. I feel like when this came out it was getting a lot of hype. I've seen it all over, so I bought it, but I've then never gravitated towards it. But I would like to read it, and the cover is just so pretty. Then I picked up The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Maybe romance, maybe literary fiction, but I've seen a lot of people say that this is just beautiful, like the writing is gorgeous. Okay, I think it's kind of to do with time travel, which is really not what I was expecting. Then I've got The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This is the prequel, I believe, to the Hunger Games series. I read the Hunger Games series years and years ago when I was in school, but this one is actually coming out as a movie in November, I want to say, so I would like to read this before then. Then one of the only thrillers I actually have on my autumn TBR in physical books is Too Late by Colleen Hoover. I have talked about how I am not the biggest Coho fan on here, but Verity is my favourite book of hers. So when this came out, I think it only came out recently, a few people had told me that they think I would really like this. So I'm excited to get to this one because if it is anything like Verity, I think I will love it. The only other thriller that I have on my physical TBR is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I've seen a lot of hype around this author. Sarah Crowley loves her, a few of my besties over on my Bookstagram love her. I've actually got a lot of her audiobooks saved, ready to listen to, but I've heard she's really good at writing thrillers. You can't really guess the plot, they keep you in suspense, all the things that you want out of a good thriller book. Then just a fluffy, cute little spooky themed romance. This is The Kiss Curse. This is the second book after The XX, which I read last Halloween. It wasn't a groundbreaking book by any means, but it was very seasonally appropriate. It was a quick read, entertaining, and just gave all of the cute, spooky, cozy vibes. So I'm excited to read this one too. This one follows the cousin of the main girl and the brother of the main guy, I think. And the last few are romances, I think. I've got Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I've heard such good things about this one. I think this is people's favourite of her books. So I'm excited to get to this one. I read Part of Your World in the summer. That is the only Abby Jimenez book that I've ever read, but I did really enjoy it. I really liked the writing. Then I've got The Dead Romantics, which again is being solely hyped up. I am a little bit late to this one. I think this came out a few years ago. She has now got another new romance book, which is meant to be really good. I think it's called The 7-Year Slip. I do want to read that one as well. But from what I've heard about this one, I think the main character can see ghosts. And I think she falls in love with a ghost, because I've seen people literally saying like, why am I in love with a dead guy? Why am I crying over this man that is quite literally not alive? So I'm excited to get to this one, and it just feels like a cozy sort of autumnal read because he's literally a ghost. Then I've got Under the Sycamore Tree. My friend said it made her cry, so I ran out to go and buy it. I've had this on my shelf for a couple of months but just haven't got around to it, so hopefully this season I will. The cover looks so autumnal. Then I have Cleopatra and Frankenstein. Again, I know nothing about any of these books, but I'm trying not to read the backs because I feel like then sometimes they give things away and I kind of like going into things blind. But I think this is a literary fiction romance type thing. Really don't know. I think it's like set in New York. Maybe like a coming of age type book. I have no idea. I have heard conflicting opinions on this one though. Some people seem to love it, but I'm sure I've seen Sarah DNF it, so I don't really know. Then the last book that I got is The Museum of Ordinary People. I've not heard a lot about this one, but it was in the works 3 for £6 deal, and I remembered Sophie, Read by Sophie on Instagram, rating this quite highly and giving it quite a good review, so I thought I would just pick it up. I think it's maybe like literary fiction, kind of gives me Before the Coffee Gets Cold kind of vibes. Okay, so that is all the physical books that I want to read this autumn. Now for some of my highly anticipated new releases. First up I have Hopeless by Elsie Silver. This is the 5th book in the Chestnut Spring series. It follows Bo, who is one of the Eaton brothers, and I feel like everybody has been waiting for his book. It's age gap, fake marriage, he has a troubled past and deals with trauma. Everybody is so excited for this book. I think this comes out in October. Then I have A Curse for True Love, which is in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I actually did not love the first two, but I'm hoping the third one will kind of like sell me on the series. Then we have Jessa Hastings. She has 2 new books coming out in the next few months. The first one is a completely new series. It's a fantasy series, a retelling of Peter Pan. That's called Never. That comes out in December. So excited for that. I would literally read her shopping list. The new Magnolia Parks comes out next year. I think that's it for new releases. I'm sure there will be more. My mind has suddenly gone blank thinking of books I want to read, but I do want to read Throne of Glass. I don't think that will be until next year because, like I said, I have asked them for Christmas. And then on Kindle, I really want to get to the Cat and Mouse duet, Haunting and Hunting Adeline. I feel like they are definitely like autumn winter reads. So I think that is everything. No doubt I have probably forgotten something, but they are the books that are on my physical autumn TBR or that I just want to get around to reading this autumn season. If you do have any other book recommendations, please do let me know. Let me know what you are going to be reading this autumn. As always, follow my Bookstagram if you do want to stay more up to date with current reads, reviews, everything like that. I will have it here and it will always be linked down below. But thank you so much for watching and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Bye!